Hey, folks, how about those Blue Jays? Yeah, I guess it was a tough weekend. Tough weekend in Leafland. Listen, all things will pass, they say. And it seems like our season is done, without question. But I think there's more to come. And we're going to break it all down for you right here on the OZone.
You're in the offensive zone, your place for Leafs hockey.
Hey folks, that's Coach. That's Katie. I'm the Devo. Welcome to the OZone, where we talk all things Leafs. Coach, where are you right now?
Last podcast here, fellas, in the Dallas headquarters for me. Big echo in here. There's nothing left other than this thing. I got one more podcast to tell you what I think here. So, there you go.
Well, let your freak flag fly. KD, how's things going on the east side?
Yeah, we're over here on the Danforth celebrating a sweep by the Jays against a very, very tricky Atlanta team. So we've jumped onto a new bandwagon pretty quick, and
That's true.
But it's my daughter's 7-0 with the Jays so far this year. So she's going to lots of games and they're winning.
That's
KD,
great.
KD, just do not let her be a Leaf fan. Don't let it happen.
Yeah, I think she's learning. She's learning pretty quick.
Mama, don't let your boys grow up to be cowboys. All right, so speaking of which, the OZone, we were at the game on Friday night. Here's a couple pictures. Our winning streak came to a sad end as well. But then here we go again on Saturday, and we're at the Jays game in a nice box there. That was a wonderful little situation.
Thanks to Chile.
Yeah, way to go. And then you went again today for Mother's Day. So well done. Way to make sure your kids take your wife to Mother's Day at the ballpark, folks. That's a top-notch move. Okay, let's look back just a little bit. We'll kick the tires at this. What happened? Leafs lose in 5 to Florida. We'll start with you, Coach. What went wrong for the Leafs in this series?
Yeah, how much time we got? So, I guess I'll pick off a couple obvious ones. 2 goals per game every game, which I think we established last time is an average of 1.75, something like that. You can't have this team structured the way it is and score 2 goals a game. I'm going to be telling you people here for the next 16 and a half minutes or so when it's my turn that I'm so upset to be right about this stuff, but I was right about a lot of stuff. And one thing I said a couple of weeks ago was that there's no goaltender in the organization that can consistently win a 2-1 game. It just can't happen. Yeah. You have to score. They're not, and the Leafs couldn't score. And guys, Florida is not as tight defensively as Tampa is. And we scored way more against Tampa. And so like that's just an easy one. It's obvious. And then I think the other thing is that series is over, right? When 2 things happen. Number one, that 37-second stretch in Game 2, we're dominating, right? And you can't make those plays at the blue line, lose that game, and then fail to show up in Game 3, where you could make it a series. Then when you're down 3-0, you're going for the statistical anomaly to try and get back into it. So I don't know. We'll get into it more, and I'm more interested in what happens from here. But like those are, to me, the obvious ones. KD, I'm sure you got some more of a statistical breakdown, but I've been drinking since they lost, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I took it a little easy today. It was a rough night last night and Friday too. But
were you overserved?
A little bit. Yeah. A few establishments out there.
6 out of 10.
Yeah. beyond that, I mean, I think you're right on. I mean, we talked about it at at length about learning how to score different ways and learning how to play that playoff style hockey. And it's hard for this group to, when things are on the line, to kind of, it's not in their DNA. They want to do the extra pass and they want to make the highlight reel, and it's sometimes it's about getting real ugly. If you look at the goals they scored, screens in front of the net and rebound and stuff, like they went to the spots. They just did not do it nearly enough. And then I guess, the big question will be, like, does this team have that sort of je ne sais quoi to win? Does that leadership group do what it takes to get it done? And
I think nous savons the answer to that question, but if my my conjugation is still good from grade 12 French, thank you, Madame Petrie, for that. I think we know, but we'll get into it.
I think we're going to...
Hey, Kev, I will say this, right? Yeah. So I'm going to pat myself in the back this whole 14 and a half minutes left. But you were right about this. You were absolutely right about this. As we're going through the season, terrific season, great regular season team. We all said it doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. We all said what's going to happen in the playoffs. But you went one step further. You said, Mitch Marner, great year. Yeah, you're like, okay, let's see how it is in the playoffs. Because all that stuff that he's doing, it's not available. It's not available. Everyone tightens up. You can't play like that in the playoffs. And you were right.
He had a pretty tough series. Let's call it. That's probably being polite. A couple of games there. There were some atrocious plays in his own end, trying to do too much with too little, and it really blew up. I'm gonna pull a quote out from a bunch of years ago. I'm gonna go back to the Babcock era, where really the DNA on this team was started. But he said, when questioned about the toughness of the core of this team, he said, our power play is our toughness. And what he meant by that, folks, is that, hey, you want to get tough with us, you're going to have to deal with us 5-on-4. Florida didn't really have to deal with Toronto 5-on-4. They weren't really on the power play that much. I'm not throwing the refs under the bus here for that. I'll let the fans on Twitter do that. And I think there's probably a legitimate bone to pick, certainly in Game 3 with no power play opportunities at all, which I don't think really ever happens in the NHL playoffs. But I will say this, that you got to skate through contact in order to draw penalties 9 times out of 10. You can't skate around it. And
unless you're bunting.
They're a very, very, very... they draw statistically a fairly low amount of penalties for a high-octane offensive team. They don't get as many opportunities as a lot of the other top producers around the league, and it's because of the style of play. They're not mixing it up. They're not engaging in contact. That's just the style of the players. I'm being objective about this, and they don't draw a lot of penalties, and then they gave up. They don't give penalties.
So, Mike, that's a terrific, absolutely great quote for 2 reasons, right? Number one, that is Edmonton's DNA right now. Edmonton's power play is lethal. Yeah. Kenny Holland, who's Babcock tie there, is over there, and you cannot take penalties against that team. That is 100% a great quote. The other part of it is Mike Babcock saying that. And yes, he was saying that about the power play. But also, we all know. We don't know, we weren't in the room, but we certainly have an idea that he was like this with Kyle Dubas about the composition of the roster, needed it to be tougher to win in the playoffs, and it cost him his job. And now where are we? I know we're going to get into this. I think you guys know where I stand, but he was right. He was right.
All right. You're right. So season's over. It's done. What can we look back at and then forward to with some positivity? Like, what can our loyal subscribers of the OZone look forward to positively and with expectation for next year? We'll start with you, KD.
Well, I mean, we got a little taste of Matthew Nyes, who
Yeah.
was quite obviously farther ahead on the development level than we thought.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's pretty exciting. I think some of these other young D that they traded for that they have, I think will be interesting. And we're going to get to see maybe Timmins play a little bit more next year, and maybe some of these other trades and McCabe. We'll see how we fit that D core in.
Mm-hmm.
The one guy I was really hard on during the year, but I was extremely impressed and very, very pleased with his game was Morgan Riley. I thought he was really fantastic. He looked to me like a first pairing D. He looked to me like an $8.5 million D man. I thought he played great.
Yeah.
I'm not. If that's the effort and that's what we're going to get come playoff time with him, he's worth every penny as far as I'm concerned. And you ended up sticking him with, Luke Shen. And they were great. They played great.
Yeah. You know what?
So
Agreed. Katie, and I'm glad you brought it up because I think of the three of us, I've probably taken it out on Riley the most and most consistently since he came back from injury midway through the year and early in 2023. He seemed to find the longest time to find his game. It showed up a couple games into that Tampa series. He was, I think, the best skater the Leafs had in that last series. I don't think it can be questioned. I mean, he had another goal called back in the last game. Again, we're not going to litigate that, but he was fantastic, and I'm glad you brought it up, Coach. What other positives can you take out of this effort?
Devo, I don't know if we're going to get back into this later, so I will give you your due on that. That's a goal. That was a goal.
That's a goal,
right? So not because you see the puck behind the goal line at the end of it, because the whistle was clearly blown after, but the guys, 2/3 of the guys' pads in the net. It's a goal.
We
now,
can see it from our.
Does that excuse them being down 3-0 in the series? Of course not, right? Yeah. But that's a goal. All right. So I appreciate KD being a good friend because he left me the most obvious one. Joseph Wall, fellas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, Ilya Samsonov was good in these playoffs, better than I think any of us had any right to think he would be.
Right.
His record going into this in the playoffs was not very good, and he was better than we thought. Having said that, he was just good. Like, he wasn't great. He was just good. Better than we thought, but he was good. And I texted you guys this. I've never felt more comfortable. Like, I've never felt as comfortable with Ilya, and he's my man in net. Then Joe Wall, like, he's got the composure. He's the real thing.
Yeah, he's
the
very
real
calm
thing.
back there.
I get it, and I'm a Leaf fan. I know. If you're tuning in from Columbus or wherever, send your letters, whatever. I know I'm overreacting because it's only 5 playoff starts, or the guy's had like 15 total starts. But he's legit. He has to be on the big club next year. So I loved the fact that he came forward and played well. And so, yes, there's some positive to be taken from that. And then I'll give you one other, which may be a little more controversial. For the past 2 or 3 playoffs, maybe 3 or 4 playoffs, William Nylander's been the best playoff performer. And he was again in this series. And that's just to say he had a goal in Game 4 and a goal in Game 5. Like, nobody was doing anything other than Morgan Riley. Morgan Riley was better. That's the right call. But as in terms of the big forwards, right? That guy, and I think it's his demeanor that allows him to be. He doesn't give a shit about anything, right? In the preseason, in the regular season, in the playoffs, it's the same guy. He doesn't care, and it doesn't get to him. By the way, he left that night to go play in the World Championships. He's a gamer, right? So, that's good to have him confirm over multiple playoffs that he's a good player. Is good for us. Now, we're going to get into what happens next. I don't know if it's going to be good for Arizona, but it was good for us.
That's the segue. I'm going to set the stage here for this, and I'm going to try to do it with a bit of a catch-all. Jump in, fellas, or correct me if I start to take a breath and I haven't brought it all up. Dubas currently has no contract. So he expires, right? Keefe is there. Matthews, who is under contract for another full season, can be negotiated with now because he's in that last year. You're able
Yes.
to go in there. However, he has a full no trade clause that comes due on July 1st, meaning if you do not negotiate a contract with him, you risk him going to turning a UFA and leaving, and you get nothing for him. Similarly, Mitch Marner, whom you cannot extend because he's 2 years out, has a full no trade clause come due July 1st. So if you can't extend him right now. You can't extend him even if you wanted to, and he has a full no trade. So he walks to UFA, and there's nothing you can say about it as well. William Nylander, he's in his last year. There's no trade issues there. 6.7, is that right? His deal is roughly 6.7.
You know he likes this. It's 6.9.
6.9. Okay. So we got
Nice.
Riley. He's locked up for. We'll all be dead of natural causes by the time that contract expires. The Leafs will likely go through several more coaches before he stops being a Leaf.
So Nylander's got a modified no trade that
He's
kicks
got 10
in July
teams.
1st, too. It's got 10 teams, yeah.
10 teams. So, I think that's the high level stuff. We still don't technically know what's going to happen.
Just one more, maybe, for the good folks at home, because if you look at this and there's one contract that obviously, like even worse than Matt Murray's, there's one contract you would really, really want to move, and that's Tavares. He's got a full no trade. Like he can't move him. So even if you could, even if you went to him and asked him,
Yep.
who's taking that contract?
So there's that, and I guess the last thing is Jake Muzzin, right? You don't know what's going to happen with him, and he's got another year, I believe, right?
It's a good question.
6.5 or 6.7. So those are the main sort of moving parts here with respect to the sort of the large swaths that are out there. Some things we can take away, I think, almost for certain. Bunting will likely be gone. Samsonov's, I know Coach will send him many letters when he's in Europe, but I suspect he'll go to greener pastures and get a big.
I'm going to get on Putin's radar and send him so many letters.
I'm trying to think who else is out. Kerfoot's done. Kerfoot, Hall, done.
O'Reilly.
O'Reilly for sure.
Aston Reese. There's a bunch. It's a
Young
number.
Croc's under contract for a few more years.
Yeah, he is. He's got 3 more. He's the most tenured guy.
Yeah.
So that's the lay of the land, folks. The lay of the land sort of looks like that.
O'Reilly.
Now, people will say, well, look, we still got Matthews and Marner. They're under contract. We don't have to panic. We don't have to do anything. If you think you've got a blue chip player and you have no control while they walk towards free agency, that's panic. That's DEFCON 1 right off the bat. And you've got your number 1 guy and your number 2 guy fast approaching on July 1st. You also have a GM currently that is not signed. You have a president of operations that may be terminated. Shanahan, they may let Shanahan go to sort of level and start again. I would think if they keep Shanahan, they definitely get rid of Dubas, or he gets rid of Dubas. If they don't, I suspect the same. I think Dubas will be gone. If Dubas is gone, I think Keefe is of all of them. I think Keefe is probably the most logical person to be changed. Although I can't name you a coach who I think would fit in perfectly behind there. So that's the playing field, fellas. Have I missed anything?
No,
Is
pretty
that
much
about
it.
Okay,
That's
Coach,
everyone.
Coach, what's going to happen?
Katie, you want this first? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I'll
Well,
go.
I mean, there's what's going to happen, and then there's what should happen, right? So go ahead.
Yeah, as far as, I mean, I think we need new leadership on the team. So like I am going to sort of bet that that's what they realize, that the leadership group is not enough. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be on the team, right? Patrick Kane was the most talented player in Chicago, and Jonathan Toews was the captain, and he was the leadership group. He and Duncan Keith. So you don't necessarily have to be the top guys out there. It helps, and often most teams are, but they need to bring in a different group, a different view. It's going to be really hard for a guy like Dubas to do that. He has a vision. He built a team. I think he loves it. I think he likes all the players. It would be almost impossible for him to do it. So I think you need a certain type of objectivity. And I mean, the good news is that all these guys are in their prime. Like they're mid-20s playing the best hockey of their lives. They're maybe arguably overpaid, but I mean, all these contracts are catching up to all these other guys who are the big players who are signing now are signing for as much or more. So, I think you don't have to blow it up. Like I'd like to see them try to adjust it first, because again, there's lots of parts in there that work pretty good, but we need to. The team needs to be able to adjust in the playoffs, play different styles, be able to handle different things, and they just don't seem to be able to. As soon as it comes, you play playoff style. There's hard back check. You flood the box, and they don't have the willingness to get in there. So I think you need to bring a sort of a more of that Matthew Nice type player in, and maybe some more meanness and toughness. And I think you need to get a new GM to do that.
Devo, if I may.
Yeah.
KD. So are you keeping the four? The five, well, it's really five with Riley. Yeah. Are you keeping all five, and are you just dressing the window dressing? You go try and find another Nice or two?
No, that five has to be adjusted. The question will be it's easy to say now, like, oh yeah, let's get rid of Matthews or let's get rid of Marner. But I think until you're a new GM trying to sort this quandary out, we don't really know what the market is. My bet would be that the market is going to be it's going to be different. Unless you can do the sign and trade with Matthews. Marner probably yields more because he's under contract longer.
So you got to change it.
Yeah.
And market forces aside, everything all else being equal, what would you do?
Yeah, I would probably move Marner before I would move Matthews if I had to choose. I know Marner is great. He can kill penalties. He can maybe do a little bit more, but when he's not a center, Matthews has really turned into a pretty solid two-way guy. Plus, I like his goal scoring. I mean, you got. Healthy, he's the best, still the best goal scorer in the league. Maybe there's a couple guys in Edmonton who can argue that, but other than those two, I think he's right up there. So I think you probably try and keep him, and then you try and move Marner. I mean, I think moving Nylander is $7 million. I mean, I don't know if that's going to move the needle enough. I think you'd.
So let me be devil's advocate on this, because we're starting about moving some blue chip pieces, and let's say, for argument's sake, we're going to see what the market is like for Marner and for Nylander, and go from there. Okay. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, Kev. That's not necessarily what you said, but let's say this is the starting point. Do you not have to have the GM sorted and the coach sorted before you can start putting paper in front of Matthews?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he's saying need new GM. I'm pretty sure that's what you said, right, Kev?
No, I wanted to ask the question. So you gotta get the new GM, which means you're going to be getting a new coach. If Dubas is gone, there's going to be a new coach. Guys, it is midway through May.
You get 5 weeks.
And July 1st is 6 weeks away, guys.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
They got to get a new GM and a new coach, and then they got to get paper in front of Matthews, which is going to go back and forth a few times. And if he says no, you can't even use up that 6 weeks, because then you got to get out there and trade him. Like, I don't think you have a choice. Like, you can't let that guy walk for nothing. That was everything. That was a lottery pick. That's everything you got.
And truth be told, like if Dubas goes, that might be the end of Matthews. He might not want to stay. So he loves Dubas. So I don't know. There might be a package deal there.
Yeah.
Well, with all due respect, fellas, the Leafs collapsing in this year's playoffs could not have been something that was unforeseen. Dubas doesn't have a contract for that very reason. Right. Surely the people that were considering what's going to happen now, right, were thinking about, well, what's the plan B? Surely there's a plan B. You can't just gas that guy and say, well, we're going to start an extensive search. Like you got to have something. It's some idea.
All right, so coaches. What kind of coaches are you going to bring in here?
Well, look, the one the GM wants. So I think there's two ways you got to think about this. There's the management structure, and then there's the roster. Okay, you guys are both right. Keefe is gone. He can't. So because either way, he doesn't work. If you believe in Dubas and the roster that he's built and the roster that he's added to at the trade deadline, if you believe in that and you keep him and you offer him another contract, then they underachieved and he didn't get enough out of the team. He didn't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, I believe that's true. I personally believe that's true. If you believe that the roster is ill-constructed and you're going to replace the GM, he's also gone. Like you said, the GM's going to bring in his own guy, just like Dubas did, and he fired Mike Babcock, which, I think, well, for me at least, was ridiculous. Like, it was a terrible move, and it's been proven to be a terrible move. Now, people were all happy about the regular season success that Sheldon Keefe delivered. Yes, he did. He had better regular seasons than Mike Babcock as a Leaf. He also had way better teams. So, and it doesn't matter. It didn't matter, and it doesn't matter. You can't tell me that Mike Babcock couldn't have figured out a star-laden roster and how to win playoff rounds. That he's proven to do. NHL and Olympics. Okay, so that's not why you called, though. Okay, the real deal here is the executive, right? I'm not so sure Brendan Shanahan keeps his job. And if so, then the whole thing goes to shit, right? I actually think they extend Dubas if Shanahan's gone because there's too much upheaval. Mm-hmm. But I think Shanahan probably is savvy enough to figure out a way to keep his job. And then I think he goes to Dubas and says, look, we'll keep you on. I'm not saying this is what should happen, but I think what will happen is Dubas is going to stay. So and a condition to that is you got to move Keefe. And he won't like that, but he will. He'll do it. And that gives you the best chance to sign Matthews. And I think, Matthews will be under the impression that we're keeping it all together. But I also agree with you, KD, that you can't keep this core together. The guy that should move is Tavares. You can't. You got to keep Riley now. He had a great playoff. And by the way, no one's taking that contract either. Yep. So it's Marner, Matthews, Nylander. If Devo, and you're bang on this, you got to have some kind of idea by mid-June that you could get a deal done. And if you can't, all bets are off. Or you keep him and then you trade him at the draft next year at like a sign-and trade type deal. But that's not going to be as lucrative as what you get now.
Right. But can you do that?
Well, yeah, you can. Sure you can. You own him till July 1st next year. Yeah, you could. But it'd be better now, just like it was better for Calgary when Matthew Tkachuk said, I'm not signing next year. So they're like, shit, who can we move him for? And everyone thought Calgary stole that trade. Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau. Maybe not so much. So yes, you got to sort Matthews out. I agree with you, Kev. He's the best one. He didn't score. 9 shots, 9 hits, 6 blocks in that. He did everything but score in that game you guys went to. Yeah. I would move Marner just like you, but I think the guy who gets moved is Nylander because it's easiest to move him. And you just want to show progress, and that's what's going to happen. And I think it's a mistake, but I think that's what's going to happen. So for the loyal subscribers out there, I feel like Sheryl Crow here. Every day is a winding road. I was all over the place. But I hope you get what I'm saying. I would fire Dubas and Keefe. I think Dubas keeps his job and Keefe is gone. Mm-hmm. I would move Marner. I think Marner stays, and I think Nylander moves. So there you go.
Okay. You've heard it here, folks. Coach has just told you everything he possibly can before he falls into enemy hands eminently.
That was a shot.
And there you have it. We're not done yet. This is a winding road.
Wait a minute, Devo. What would you do? What would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah.
Shanahan gone, so everyone replaced at the top. The whole thing.
So now, so you're saying Tannenbaum had to know, right, that this could be a possibility. So he's going to bring in a guy, like everything has to happen in 6 weeks.
I know. I'm not saying this is what I love.
Yeah.
You're saying
you think that's what's going to happen?
Unfortunately, this is the situation you're dealt with. I think, when you look at coaches that are out there, and I know I'm not even going to address how they're going to handle the coaches out there. You got Boudreau, who's won a cup with Washington. You got Quenneville, who's dealt with starlet, but I think Gwenville's too tarnished, so Boudreau's
I'm so glad you brought this up, because when you lose to Tampa, right, and you think last year, and you think your roster's good enough, so you have Barry Trotz.
Yep.
You have Joel Quenneville, and I get that he's got some tarnish on him. You have Paul Maurice out there. Right? Like, there were some guys out there, and we talked about it on the pod. And like, no, Keefe's my guy. Can't be your guy anymore. He can't. He can't.
You can't do it.
And now, Debo, we don't have the same guy. We don't have the same guys out there. Gerard Gallant is out there.
The first thing that KD said when the question was passed to him was, there's a leadership problem on this team.
Yeah.
That's the
Not
very
just
first
players.
thing. And so if that's the undergirding thing, and the skill becomes secondary or tertiary, as it were, then it doesn't matter. You have to build from the base. The base is you want better leadership. That's the only way to get through the demanding second season that is the postseason. And we've just seen it too many times.
Do you strip Tavares of his captaincy then?
Maybe if you bring in the right guy.
Maybe that's what you give Matthews to have him agree to sign.
Stay? Yeah, if he's the real leader, he hasn't been the real leader any of the other years. I don't know why he's going to change with the C on his jersey.
Boy, that's a good point. I mean, you can't excuse he had no goals in the Florida series. Like, he was good, but we need him to score. And KD, yes, he's a 200-foot player. By the way, you're saying Matthews is better because he's a 200-foot player. Our best penalty killer is Marner.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm with you. I would move Marner first because the stuff going north doesn't work. It doesn't. Yeah. You were right. You converted me.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks.
There'll be more of
this. There'll be more of this when Coach gets situated in Europe. And
hey, Devo, do I have time to look up undergirding before we wrap this one up?
I'll send you a textbook on the subject. You'll easy reading for your flight.
Yeah. Hey, look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament.
All right, folks, everything you need to know about your Leafers, you're going to find out about it right here on the Ozone.